Hey folks, welcome. Here we discuss real stories by real people. Today we have the story of a man who finds out his wife has been cheating on him with her driver. Let's see how it goes. Story 1. I, 32 male, and my wife, 31, have been married for about 2 years now. We have a great relationship and we've been having a great time. We were very happy. Both my wife and I were working. We each had 9-to-5 jobs and often got so busy with office work, meetings, and business trips. Sometimes we even go days without seeing each other due to our busy schedules. But we still managed to make it work. We both understood each other's schedules and respected each other's career trajectories, so it never seemed to be an issue whatsoever. We had a driver. My wife didn't like to drive, so the driver was mostly for her own use, since she usually had lots of places to go to, which was why he hired him. She had her own car which they used, while I had mine that I drove to wherever. He had been with us since we got married and was pretty good at his job. A few weeks ago, our driver passed away, so we had to replace him. I contacted various companies and agencies until I eventually got a new driver to hire. He was young and seemed competent. He also had a good background, so after discussing with my wife, we hired him and he became her new driver. From the beginning, I was a bit skeptical, seeing as he was young, about 27 years old, and quite good looking. I guess I was a bit jealous and maybe even insecure, because I knew he would have to spend a lot of time around her. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't worried about my wife because I trusted her completely. It was just him that I couldn't help but feel wary about. I couldn't trust that he wouldn't try anything funny. My wife was quite the catch, if I could say so myself. After a few weeks of working with us, I asked my wife about him one day and she said all was good. She told me how great he was at his job, even going as far as saying he was almost a match for our late driver. I couldn't voice out my concerns to her because she seemed so pleased with his service. So I decided to let my worries slide. With time, I got used to his presence and it didn't seem as if he was going to cause any trouble. So I decided I must have been worried for nothing, letting my insecurities cloud my judgment. What mattered most was that he was doing his job right. It's been about a month now and so far so good. Recently though, some weeks back to be more precise, I began to notice a few changes in my wife's behavior. It wasn't anything alarming, but it did seem a bit fishy. Although she used to be out of the house a lot due to her job, it appeared as if her outings were lasting longer. I asked her what was keeping her so busy lately, and she told me her schedule was a bit more packed and there was nothing to worry about. I believed her and didn't bother too much. She also seemed to be getting along really well with the driver. She would come home from work and tell me how thoughtful he was, clocking out late because of her, and how he sometimes has to wait hours for her to get off work or meetings but never complained. She also told me about how some time ago when I was out of town, she was feeling sick and called him to get her to the hospital. Apparently he had rushed over even though it was his day off and took her there. She also suggested we give him a raise. I told her it was all right if she believed he deserved it, and she was ecstatic. Some days ago, I had to travel again for yet another business trip. It was supposed to last a week, but we were able to wrap up earlier than we had expected, so I was able to return 2 days earlier. I had been away so frequently lately that I felt bad for my wife because we hadn't spent any quality time together. I couldn't even remember the last time we went on a date. So I decided to surprise her and have a lovely night. I even planned to take her out the next day, which was luckily a weekend, so we could have some good alone time. I was already excited just planning for it. Because we suddenly had to return home after our meetings, I was only able to catch a late flight. So by the time I had reached home, it was already past midnight. I was so exhausted and just wanted to be with my wife. But on getting home, I noticed that her car wasn't there. That was not normal because she was never home that late and the driver would usually clock out at 10 p.m. the latest. So I didn't understand where she could have been, especially because she would usually tell me if anything was up to keep her out that late, but there was nothing from her. I met her security guard and inquired about them. I wanted to know if perhaps something was up with her car and it had to be dropped by the mechanics. The security assured me that nothing was wrong with it. He said that she had gone out earlier and was still not back. I told him not to tell her that I had returned when she came back and should just pretend nothing was up. He said okay, and I went into the house. I quickly dropped off my stuff in my room, removed my shoes from the entryway, and turned off the lights as they were when I first came in. I then sat in the living room to wait for her. The whole situation was so shady that I needed to know what was going on. About 30 minutes later, I heard her car driving into the compound. I waited by the window, silently watching as she exited the passenger seat of the car, looking all dolled up as though she was out for a special event. The driver also came out and locked the car door, but instead of walking away and leaving, he walked up to her and walked her to the door. I hid by the entryway, waiting as she unlocked the door and dragged him in. I could see them giggling as they began to kiss. I was so angry I thought I could explode. I immediately got out of my hiding place, knowing they had no idea I was in there, and flipped on the switch. Immediately, they jumped off each other and began to look around until they saw me standing there, watching. They looked like deer caught in headlights. My wife began to stutter, asking what I was doing here, and when I got back, saying that she didn't expect me to be home yet. She tried to act all innocent, but it was too late. I had already seen everything. I didn't need to hear any lies or excuses. So, just as we were standing at the doorway, I kicked them both out of my house. I immediately fired the driver and told him to get out before I called the police. As for her, I told her to get off and not bother coming back. I told her not to worry about her stuff as I would pack them and send them via courier. I also told her to expect divorce papers and sign them as soon as she received them. I shut the door in both their faces and went back into the house. I can't believe this is how my 2-year-old marriage would come to an end. Edit. My wife, STBXW, has since left me nearly 200 missed calls and messages. I'm sorry your marriage ended this way, OP. Your STBXW got attracted to her driver, but she should have thought twice before engaging in that attraction. I doubt that they wouldn't be together happily or at all now that you're divorcing her. The thrill and secrecy was probably what made their relationship so exciting. Your STBXW made her decision. Now she has to deal with the consequences they bring with them. Good luck, OP. Story 2. We've been married for 8 years, together for 10 plus. We have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old son. My wife also has 3 children from a previous marriage. When we first moved in together, 2013, she quit her job and was able to get an admin job at the company I was working for. During that time, her and this dude I knew from that company hit it off, and he would carpool with her to the house and vice versa. Sometimes he would get off and hang out at my house with me, and I really didn't make much of it. I thought that was a healthy coworker relationship. I knew the guy before I met my wife. The guy was married. We had hung out together, him and his wife and me and my wife, girlfriend at the time, at Christmas parties, etc. And it seemed like a really healthy relationship. My wife would talk to me about what he would tell her and how his wife was pregnant and so on and so forth, and I never made anything out of it. My wife only lasted at that job for about a year. We never hear from dude again, other than maybe social media. Fast forward a few years. I quit my job late 2017 to start my own real estate practice. Ever since I switched jobs, things have gone downhill from there. Mainly because the first year I used all of our savings to keep afloat. Didn't make enough money to replace my old income, and our lifestyle took a hit. I had to take odd jobs and side jobs that wouldn't conflict with the start of my real estate career to keep up with bills and home expenses, until my business could take off. After having our second child, 2015, her oldest moving out 2018 to go to college, and me starting real estate, it was a whirlwind of changes that took a hit in our relationship. We no longer seek the same things. She would complain about my disconnect from her and how I was never mentally there in the house, which I admit. The first year in real estate made me go into this deep depression, and I was in a really dark place. Fast forward to 2020. We had an argument where she mentioned to me that she was craving attention because I wasn't giving it to her. We had stopped having sex for like months at a time. My wife spends all day watching Netflix when I'm at home. Never cares to put the kids to bed. Never cares to do anything else once she's done with work. And I was mostly scrolling through my phone. I decided to take a trip after 3 cancellations to go see my mom. I told her to come with me and she said she couldn't do it. That she had to quarantine before she could get back to work and that I should go, me and the boys. I went to see my mom with my 2 boys. While away, I had this weird vibe from her. She was treating me as if we were friends on the phone and via IM. Very weird and inexplicable. Long story short, I get back from the trip and the conversation she has with me is, "I think you and I are in the process of breaking up. We haven't had sex, you don't seem to be happy, etc., etc., etc." I told her I was indeed in a dark place and not feeling emotionally well, mainly because my relationship with her and how things were not according to expectations at work, but that I wanted to pull through, and I even said then, "I believe we still have a 50-50 chance to salvage our marriage if that's how you feel." We start the process of figuring out what we're going to do for our marriage and kids, and I start going to counseling for my depression. Long story short, again, I pull myself out focusing on work, exercise, and healthy eating. My business takes off in ways I couldn't even imagine, and while all this is happening, we are sleeping together and still married, trying to figure it out. I get a text from that dude's wife with all the screenshots of my wife and him talking. Meeting up for lunches, calling each other babe, sending each other videos and pictures. Her saying how she loves his voice and how he wants to see her, etc. All this shit happens while I was gone. Before we had the conversation of, "I think we're in the process of breaking up." It gets even worse. There's a text from 2013, the day that I proposed to her, of her telling him how I just proposed to her and she had a wet dream with him. I called her up, told her we needed to talk about this dude, and asked her if she met up with him. She said yes, and there was some serious making out. I confronted her with the pictures of her and him in what appeared to be a house, and she couldn't tell me where it was because it would sound worse than what it is. I took a day to soak it all in, and the next day, I told her that we are just raising kids. I don't want to be with you, and as soon as we figure out how we're going to do this with the kids, I'm out. She literally tells me that this was my easy out. What the hell? I didn't go out and meet with an idiot that can't even count to 100 and is a garbage father to his kids and wife, has been in jail and is on probation at the moment. God was good enough to allow me to see this guy the next day. I encountered him at an office and kicked his ass. He ran. I told my wife they both thought there wouldn't be consequences to their actions. My wife and I had a talk after I calmed down, and to her it was just a minor mistake. Did I mention she ended her previous marriage with an infidelity on her end as well? In my mind, she gave up on me before she even told me. In my mind, her actions spoke louder than words. And now, I'm making solid money, have a 3+ year solid real estate practice, have lost 20 pounds, and I'm eating healthy, reading, etc. And she sees how I've pulled myself out from depression and am doing great. And she's thinking she should keep me. But to me, I don't see how we get past that and how we would get back to loving each other when the ultimate disrespect has been committed. In my mind, this thing is over, and I don't see it any other way. Your STBXW was a red flag from the start, OP. She ended her previous marriage due to her infidelity. You should have never married someone like that. She's one of those people who make the sentence, "once a cheater, always a cheater," correct. She didn't even wait to get married to you before she cheated. It's good that you're divorcing her. You need someone who would love you and be loyal to you when you have and when you don't. Now for some comments. Your wife can think anything she wants, but you get to decide whether you want to forgive her or not. I think you should move on to someone better, and it sounds like that's what you think as well. Sounds like you've made up your mind. Go ahead and talk to a lawyer to prepare divorce papers. Get her served. Save those screenshots the other man's wife sent you and show them to your lawyer. She might be able to claim half your business as of the date of filing, as it was built in the marriage, so the sooner you file, the more of that you will retain. Do not wait until your youngest is 18. Get out now. Take some time to build on what you've started with your business and with personal development. And when you're ready, start dating, with no tolerance for cheats. OP, the first mistake you made was marrying a cheater, and she has 3 kids too. Cheaters are a special kind of disgusting people. Of all the people you could marry, you chose a cheater? WTF. If she has a history of cheating and her previous marriage ended because of her infidelity, she should be the last and the worst choice to pick as a wife. You don't choose a cheater as a wife and expect her to be the best example of fidelity and trust. She should have never been your wife or even a girlfriend. And her claiming her cheating was a mistake emphasizes the fact that she should have never